Hello, it's Tom here. I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. My Christmas went pretty well. I spent it with my brothers and my parents, and my parents bought me a new sweater. It's black. They know me so well. And yes, the New Space 1999 segment is not up yet, and I apologize for that. This Christmas holiday was much busier at work than I had anticipated. And yes, it will probably go up sometime after the new year because we have a lot of material coming into the Agony booth, and that seems to work out best that way. So apologies if you were looking forward to it. Today I thought that I would throw in my 2 cents regarding the Doctor Who special, The Time of the Doctor. And I wanted to preface it by sort of discussing what Doctor Who means to me. I am an old school Doctor Who fan. I first watched Doctor Who as a teenager when it aired on PBS, a local PBS affiliate, and it was Tom Baker. The first Doctor Who episode I saw was the tail end of the last episode of Robot. And, you know, you see something like that and you kind of wonder, what the heck is this? And I figured out that this next episode was going to air after that, and I really got into it. I really enjoyed the series, and I got a real kick out of it. And as a result, I became a huge Tom Baker fan. Tom Baker was my doctor. And so when Peter Davison took over, I kind of gave up on the series. And honestly, there were good reasons for that, because I think the first episode Peter David did was Castrovalva, I believe was the name of it. Boring as hell. It was just terrible. Just tons of padding. And at the time, the Doctor had 3 companions, Tegan, Lissa, and Adric. And Adric, I think, to a majority of people, is myself included, is considered one of the worst companions of all time. He's just a whiny, terrible character, and I just couldn't see myself watching this character week after week. And so I just gave up on the Peter Davison era, and I had dropped out of Who for a long time. And it wasn't until years later that PBS was showing Doctor Who, and I caught the tail end of the Colin Baker stuff. And I think Colin Baker is a terrible Doctor Who. I don't think that he himself was a bad actor. He was just given a ton of really, really crappy material to work with. But I did like the Sylvester McCoy era. So years later, when Sylvester McCoy went away, when Doctor Who went away, and Fox had begun to put together a pilot, a TV movie for Doctor Who, I was very excited. And I watched it, and I didn't think it was bad at all. I especially liked Paul McGann. Paul McGann, to me, was a great Doctor. He was an excellent choice. And in retrospect, I'm kind of glad Fox didn't make a television series, because I think they would have botched it horribly. So as a one-off, it was enjoyable. And back, I think it was 2005, in 2005, when a new Doctor Who was announced, I was cautiously optimistic because I heard BBC was doing it. And I had to say, I loved it. Christopher Eccleston, to me, of the modern era, is the best Doctor. And there are people who are huge David Tennant fans, there are huge Matt Smith fans. I'm Christopher Eccleston, diehard. I'm sorry he only did 1 season, because he was just awesome. And Tennant, he wasn't bad. I thought Tennant was pretty decent. And but Matt Smith, I freely admit this, when Matt Smith was first announced as the Doctor, he was only 28 years old, and I'm 46. And this was this huge age discrepancy between him and me, and I immediately just dumped on the idea that the Doctor could possibly be played by a guy that young. And it was discrimination. It was age discrimination. I won't hide it, and I'm a little ashamed of it now, because people should not be proud of being prejudiced based on age, race, sex, religion. And I watched, but I said, you know what, I'm going to give his first episode a try. I'm going to give this guy a fair shake. And he blew me away. That first episode, I really realized what an idiot I was by saying, oh, he's too young to play the Doctor. He did a great job. He was funny and clever, and he was charismatic. And I think also it helped that I liked Rory and Amelia so much as the first companions. That being said, as the years wore on, I grew to like the show less and less, and a large part of it was because of River Song. I have nothing against Alex Kingston, the actress. I used to love watching her on ER. She was just an awesome actress on that show. And I really liked Silence in the Library, the first appearance of River Song. That was a really fantastic concept. Someone was actually playing with the idea of time travel, where the Doctor's first meeting with this woman is her last meeting with him. And I really liked the way they did that. Time travel in that manner just isn't done enough in Doctor Who, where the Doctor should be running into people and not knowing why they're after him. And that was kind of the cool thing with the episode in which he met Shakespeare, and Queen Elizabeth wants his head, and he has no idea why. And you find out in Day of the Doctor, well, there might be a good reason why. And so Silence in the Library was just wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and it was heartbreaking in so many ways. That being said, as the Matt Smith era wore on, and we got more and more of River Song, I just really began to hate the show, because she was such a Mary Sue character. She would have that smarmy smile and be calling him sweetie, as if she knew everything, and she is supposed to be in prison, but she could leave the prison at any time, and you know what? That's not being in prison, okay? And her presence really soured me on the show. And so, by the time she was written out of the series, thank God, my emotional state was kind of set. My opinion on the show had just really been set. I was soured on it. Matt Smith's run was forever stained by the presence of River Song. And then came along the Day of the Doctor, and I enjoyed Day of the Doctor. I thought Day of the Doctor was good. It was a decent homage to Doctor Who, and I know that a lot of people were upset that there wasn't enough references to old Who, to classic Who. Well, you got a 2-hour show, or 90-minute 2-hour show. There's only so much you can pack into it, and I thought they did all right. And now we come to the Time of the Doctor. And I'm sorry it took so long. I'm looking here. It's about 7.5 minutes. But now we come to the Time of the Doctor, and what a mess. Just... Okay, first of all, here's the thing that frustrates me so much about... Another thing that frustrates me about the Matt Smith era of Doctor Who is that back in the day, Doctor Who at least tried to pay lip service to science. That they were attempting to suggest that this was a show that was taking place in a universe where you had laws of physics, and I liked that. I appreciated that. I remember there was a Tom Baker episode, Pyramids of Mars, where they did that, where he defeats the enemy by basically realizing that light, it's about light speed, so he has to get from Mars to Earth with a TARDIS and beat the guy there. That was cool. What Doctor Who's degenerated into is it's a fantasy story in space. And I realize that a lot of people will say, well, it's a kids show. Well, I don't think that's a good enough excuse. You can have a kids show and still have science in it. But now Doctor Who runs around with this magic wand, and he runs into space villains, planet-sized space villains, and he talks them to death. And this was kind of the problem with Time of the Doctor. We get to this point where he comes to this planet, and you've got a town called Christmas, and it's fine for some people, but I just really, really thought that it just wasn't very good to me. I really didn't like it. I didn't like the fantasy aspects, because really that's what it has turned into. It's a fantasy story. And the other part, another problem I had with it was, well, we're just, Moffat just decided, well, I'm just going to throw every single Who villain I ever used, and I'm just going to throw them all in this one last episode. So I'm going to have the Sontarans there, and the Sontarans are just used as comic relief, and that really annoyed me, because I'm an old school Sontaran fan. Sontarans are one of my favorite Who villains, but they're just funny, haha. And then we're going to throw in the Cybermen, and then we're going to throw in the Daleks, and then we're going to throw in the Weeping Angels. Why are the Weeping Angels there? No reason whatsoever. There is no good reason why the Weeping Angels are there. It was like Moffat said, well, because it's the last Matt Smith episode, so I'm going to have the Weeping Angels there. And so it just really comes across as a terrible mess. And another problem is that when the Doctor is saying goodbye to Oswin, I didn't really have that much of an emotional impact. I didn't feel the emotional impact there with Oswin. And the problem is because Oswin has only been on the Christmas special in half a season. And so what we really should have been feeling was the departure between the Doctor and Amelia. And I'm sorry that Amelia and Rory couldn't have stuck around for the entire season, and that the two of them couldn't have just left with Matt Smith because they had gone the whole route. And I don't think that wouldn't have been a bad thing at all, because a similar thing happened with Patrick Troughton's Doctor, the second Doctor, and Jamie. Jamie had been a male companion of his, and the two actors pretty much walked out together. And I always thought, well, that was actually kind of cool. And so Rory and Amy, had they been there, I think would have been more powerful. And ultimately, I think the show could have used a bit better editing. I don't know how it could have been done better. And it just really, in this one 90-minute special, kind of summed up everything I didn't like about Doctor Who these days. And here's another thing that I really don't like about Doctor Who. It's the power creep. And I'll explain what the power creep is. If you take a comic book character like Wolverine, for example, when Wolverine first appeared in the 70s, he had the regeneration factor. But the regeneration wasn't that fast. And as the character was shown through comics over the years, the regeneration factor grew quicker and quicker, to the point where you could blow off the flesh from an arm and it would grow back within 3 panels. And that's one example of the power creep. Another is Doug Ramsey. And when Doug Ramsey, who was another mutant when he first appeared, Doug Ramsey has the ability of super translation. He can understand any language spoken, any language written, and it's a really cool ability. Well, someone suggested, well, what if he could read body language? That would make him the super martial artist. And it's like, okay, now you're getting kind of ridiculous. And so Doug Ramsey's powers have increased dramatically over the years. And this is kind of what happened with the Doctor. The Doctor started off with this sonic screwdriver. And the sonic screwdriver basically turned screws. And over the years, the sonic screwdriver became more and more powerful, to the point where it has literally become a magic wand. And the Doctor, there's this thing where the Doctor would deal these threats, and he would have to use his intelligence to take out these threats. And now we have this episode in this last season where the Doctor blows up an entire fleet of Cybermen ships single-handed. But when you get to that point, what villains can really stand against him, where a guy can just blow up an entire fleet just because he's the Doctor and it looks cool? And so when I'm watching this Time of the Doctor, I can't help but get the feeling of that, where everyone's just so afraid of the Doctor, and they've staged this planet for, I think it's 500 years, and they're afraid of him. And I'm thinking to myself, well, why? I'm just really not certain why they're so afraid of him, and it just really frustrated me. And this is the final thing that I think annoyed me so much, is that Moffat seemed so intent on making this Doctor, the Matt Smith era Doctor, the ultimate Doctor, the Doctor beyond compare, the most awesomest Doctor ever. And the way he does it, he basically says, well, the Doctor has been tooling around in his body for 400 years. And that was Day of the Doctor. And then, when you see this, he's been on this planet for some 500, 600 years. He's grown old. And so he's basically been in this body for as long as all the other regenerations combined. And that, to me, just really struck me as Moffat's way of saying, see, isn't my Doctor just the most awesomest, most wonderfulest character ever? And I know I haven't spoken a lot about the details of Time of the Doctor, but I don't know. I just really felt that if they were trying to tug on my emotional heartstrings, it failed miserably. And if they were trying to give me a really good story, it failed miserably. And if I'm just really looking forward to Peter Capaldi's run, because I think Peter Capaldi, while I've been watching the thick of it, looks like a great actor. And so, anyway, I realize I haven't given too much detail about Time of the Doctor, and I apologize, but I'm trying to keep this under 15 minutes. I don't know, I just didn't like it. So, Anyway, I hope everyone has a happy new year, a safe new year, and I hope everyone takes care. Bye-bye.